Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Negotiation. My name is Todd Embley, and I'm your host. And I am thrilled to welcome back Justin Downs, president of Axis Leisure Management. Now, since 2007, Justin has been focused on cultivating China's promising ski and snowboard industry by developing, designing, and operating snow resorts. He plays a pivotal role in developing the infrastructure for China to host the 2022 Winter Olympics. I'm going to say that again. He played a pivotal role in developing the infrastructure for China to host the 2022 Winter Olympics, and he is the go-to media and business expert on all things China and skiing. Justin, welcome to the Negotiation Podcast again.
Thanks for having me back, Todd. Glad I didn't get it wrong the first time.
That's right. So I say again because he's been on before. For those of you who want to catch the first iteration back November 2nd, 2021, episode 116, we had Justin on, and we talked about everything going on back then, somewhat amidst COVID as well. So very interesting, different times back then. And we covered a little bit about how Justin ended up in China. So if you want that story, you can go back and get it. But for now, we're just going to come in. Justin, where in the world are you today that you're recording from? We'll start there.
Thanks, Todd. Well, you're getting me right downtown Beijing, so just after the Spring Festival. So here we are, back to work in the middle of Beijing.
Okay. And for those of you unwilling to go back and listen to the other episode, tell us once again, quickly, what have you been doing in China to help develop the ski industry?
Well, I'll give you the slimmed down version in the event you do want to go back. So, but
yes, and you should.
In essence, as you said, I came here in 2007. I actually came here with a Canadian resort development company, Intrawest, which kind of later became a Hong Kong operated conglomerate called Melco, and kind of started off by bringing North American and specifically Canadian resort development know-how and resort operations know-how to the very early stages of the Chinese ski industry. So we started off by buying 5 ski resorts in Northeast China. Unfortunately, we're doing that during the financial crisis. So we kind of stumbled and fell a little bit because of lots of reasons, largely because of the external factors external to China. So that kind of came undone in around 2009. That's when I started my business, Axis Leisure Management, basically following the same principles. So since 2009, I and my company have been working with the majority of China's larger private developers and also state-owned, so government-owned developers around the country to visualize and plan and implement what has become one of the most dominant ski industries in the world now. So we get involved in the early stages of master planning right through to kind of detailed ski resort or ski area design, architecture, interior design, construction supervision, and management. And then as the industry, as these facilities grow, we get involved in the operations of these, the development of events, which started off as, provincial events, then got into World Cups, and then eventually, as you know, the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. So we kind of get involved in the whole life cycle of the resort. And I've had a pretty exciting journey going to some fairly remote and interesting parts of this vast nation. And it's been an exciting ride to see where it's come from just in the 15, 16 years that I've been here, but it's still got a long way to go.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, kind of off the top, the way, as you're describing it, it sounds like a lot of fun. I think people listening would think, like, especially if you're into skiing or snowboarding or something, you think, man, that sounds like a really cool job. Is it as cool and fun as it sounds?
Well, I always joke, it actually doesn't matter what industry you're in. It always looks more fun to somebody else. But, if I could take out the staff, customers, making a profit, and the weather, it's actually a perfect industry to be in. All jokes aside, yes, it is. It is a fun job, and I'm very fortunate that very early in my career I decided to kind of follow my passion rather than follow the traditional go to university and end up working in an office in a city type of thing. I thought, okay, I love the mountains, I love the outdoors. How can I turn this passion into a career? And thankfully, I kind of took the right paths and had the right mentors and ended up where I am today. And it is fun. You really get to meet some interesting people, and go to some exotic places and experience some different cultures. And in a country like China, even though it's one of the most advanced countries economies in the world, it's still very, say, rough around the edges in some of these types of industries where you're still coming in and able to make a difference and see things in its infancy. So I get excited by a lot of the places I get to go, and the people I get to meet and the things I get to do. So yeah, for me, I feel quite fortunate, but it's not for everybody, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, if I didn't have to work, I would love my job. Now, can we just start maybe with like a high level breakdown of the state of skiing in China? I think a lot of people might have an idea. We've talked about some of their results at the Olympics and some things like that, but you have a very granular understanding, even from a data perspective, on the numbers and participation rates and number of hills, access distances from major metropolitan centers, these kinds of things. Can you just give us an overall high level breakdown of the state of skiing in China?
Sure. Well, I mean, look, this industry is still very much in its infancy, and even though I guess anybody might stake claim to this, but China theoretically is the birthplace of skiing, going back to thousands of years ago in northwest China. Um,
Bold,
with the
bold
herds.
claim, Justin.
I know, yes, but it is true. Okay, so they tell me. I wasn't there at the time, but
Yeah.
but yeah, look, certainly the China is still, while the North American industry, the Canadian industry might be, 50, 75 years plus in its mature kind of ski operation development. China is still probably only in its first quarter of a century, and really only in its first 15 years of significant development. So a lot has happened since I've been here. I think since the early 2000s, we've gone from 200 or so places, and places to ski is a loose definition of skiing. Could go up on the back of a horse and ski down, but gone from 200 destinations to now more than 700, which makes China by destinations or by resources the largest ski industry in the world. It's got the most chairlifts. It's got the most places that you can go. As far as destination resorts go, though, we're still, they're still developing. If you want to compare something to like a Whistler or a Vail or a Tremblant or these types of places, we're probably looking at around 30 or so of these large scale international destination resorts. But we have more than 700 places that you can go, and the indoor ski market in China is quite the phenomenon. I think most people look at that as, okay, there's Ski Dubai, very successful, yet some people might think it's a bit of a unique gimmick. But in China, it's actually a very important part of the ski industry here. So now we have more indoor ski domes in China than there is in the rest of the world combined. And the half of the top 10 indoor ski destinations in the world are right here in China as well. So, it's become a massive market. We're probably looking at around 30 million skier visits this year, which if you look as compared to the US, which is around 50 million, China's still a little bit ways behind, but the numbers are steadily increasing. We've seen, 10 to 20% increase year on year from last year as far as skier visit numbers. The numbers are there to support it, and we're probably looking at still in China of less than 2% participation of the overall population as compared to the US or maybe 10 or 12%, or Japan in its heyday, which was around 25%, or Korea around 30%. So there's still a long way for the Chinese industry to grow.
Yeah, and I mean, those are some of the. I think we have to try to put it in perspective. So I like what you did there, bringing that U.S. number forward, because then it really helps us put in perspective the 2% versus a 12%. Because I don't think people would even understand what it is in their home country of kind of participation rates as well,
Yeah.
or even say 700 resorts as compared to however many there might be in the US or something like that, to help put things in perspective. I just find that sometimes when we're talking about China, we forget that some of the numbers we throw out, whether it's GDP or other things, it's like meters to the sun or miles
Yeah.
to the sun. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what number you tell me. I can't fathom it. Like I don't know how to compartmentalize that number. So
Well,
it's difficult.
I'll give you another. I'll give you another interesting. I did a little talk before Chinese New Year about just the amount of people that travel during Chinese New Year, and they said that 7 billion car trips would be taken in China during Chinese New Year. That was the number. And there's only 8 billion people in the world. 7 billion people were going to go on a car trip over a 7 day period in China.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an unfathomable number, right?
It is. It is. I have no idea what to do with that. It's just I know it's a ton. It's a lot. It's
Yeah,
immeasurable.
yeah.
Okay, let me ask you some questions about the quality. We know what China can do at scale, at breadth. They can manufacture. They can throw up a 25-story building in 30 days. You know what I mean? Like they can build some stuff really quickly.
Mhm.
But when we're talking about quality of snow or distance of runs, or some of these things, speed of chairs, volume of up and down, how does the industry there compare?
Look, the good thing about the Chinese industry, as I was saying, it's still relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
So Chinese resorts have the benefit of the latest technologies. So you're not necessarily hampered with 30-year-old chairlifts, that are slow and have problems, or are not even high speed lifts to start with. But China has the newest and the biggest and the best of the imported technologies, but also has developed its homegrown versions of it as well, which are equally as good and a fraction of the price, which makes it more viable for a developer to continue to invest in the resort. It's not like a $15-20 million investment. It might only be a $5 million investment. So we have more of new technology than anywhere else in the world. We are limited. Mountains, the climate is the climate, and the mountains are the mountains. So in northeast China, which is kind of Beijing and above, the mountains, we're only looking between 500 and 800 meters of vertical drop. So, you're not looking at the Rocky Mountains or the Swiss Alps or anything like that. But what it is you've got beautiful, consistent conditions. So we largely have blue skies. They're big, wide open, groomed trails, which is what the large part of the Chinese market really actually needs, which is good quality, intermediate, stable conditions. And that's what we need. So the majority of the snow is man-made snow. We probably get between 1.5 to 2 meters of natural snowfall in the northeast each year across the whole season, which is not much. But that's also reliable. So the snowmaking conditions are some of the best in the world as far as the water quality, the temperature, the humidity, the machinery, the equipment that we have to make the snow. It makes the most reliable season. Like, we can open on a guaranteed date and we can close on a guaranteed date, and everything in between is somewhat guaranteed. On the other side of the country, in the Northwest, which I recently had the opportunity to go to, far up in the northwest part of Xinjiang province in Hemu region, Altai, the mountains are enormous. We had 1,500 meters of vertical drop. They have close to 10 meters of natural snowfall each year. The temperatures are quite nice. Not too cold, not too warm. But that is, now you're getting into serious ski territory with 50 centimeters of fresh snow each day. So from one side of the country to the other, you have a very different type of experience for different types of markets. But as the market progresses, they'll start in the cities in the indoor ski domes. They'll move north into the northeast part of the country, and eventually they'll migrate to the northwest and then overseas. So it's a good progression for the
Okay.
Chinese skier.
Okay. Let me ask you directly. You're looking, maybe a province, a city has asked you to come out. They've got an area that they are thinking might make a good ski resort place area. what's the checklist? What are the things top of the list down that you're looking to make sure that they have or might be able to have?
Well, of course, certainly climate is the most important part. So we've got to be in an area that can either produce or provide snow and can sustain it. So if it's coming naturally, that's great. But then secondarily to that, we need a good, viable, and reliable water source. Water is, depending on what part of the country you're in, water is a bit of a difficult commodity at sometimes. It hasn't been recently, but it has been in the past. So definitely the climate, the ability to produce and maintain a snow covering is very important.
What is that climate? Like, what's the temperatures we're talking here?
Well, I mean, look, you're looking at anywhere from plus 2 or 3 degrees to -10
Celsius.
Celsius. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, you can produce snow in above zero temperatures these days with with modern technologies. That's great, but ideally you're looking for something that is zero and below at a constant level. Up in Northeast China, we don't have a problem with that. It's most of the time it's below zero, so it's not an issue.
And for at least 4 months.
Yeah, the ski season starts pretty early in China. So in the Northeast, it starts in early November, and we're happy if we get through until the first week of April. In most cases, it's mid to late March.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the indoor ski domes are 7 days a week, 365 days a year, so their season's a long one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really going there with them because that's 100% under control.
Totally.
I mean, are you looking for a certain density of population and proximity to the mountain?
Well, for sure. I mean, from a business perspective, of course, it's an economics game, right? You put in a certain amount of investment, you create a certain amount of capacity, and you need a certain amount of revenue, obviously, to support the ongoing operations and to pay off debt or anything like this. So yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely smaller mountains that are perhaps more boutique focused, or are more of a day skier market. They don't need to invest heavily into hotels and other such infrastructure. So yes, I mean, it's not unlike North America, really. You have a drive market that can come out for the day en masse, and you might have 5,000-6,000 people in a very small area, but then they're going to leave at the end of the day. So it's just a one-dimensional business. We have our destination resorts that typically, just like the economics of it, are similar to North America in the sense that if people can get there within a two to 2.5 hour, they have or drive time or high speed train or flight or whatever, they have the option to stay overnight for as many nights as they like. But then the infrastructure is developed to support that. So accessibility, the Chinese government is obviously very well known for providing high quality infrastructure, airports, highways, high speed trains. It's not always organic. Sometimes we might build a massive destination resort, but then it takes 2 or 3 years for the government to recognize that they need to figure out how people are going to get there. Or the other way around, they might build an international airport in some remote location, but there's actually no infrastructure there once people get there. So it's not as perhaps as well planned and as organic as it might be in other countries. But when the recognition is that accessibility is required, the government is 100% behind providing it.
Okay. When we said that, and I'll go with you on this, that skiing was born in China. What is the one country around the world that we piss off saying that?
Well, probably Europe, I would imagine. Not that Europe's a country.
What country? I mean, is it Norway? Is it Switzerland? Is it like, who are we? Who's claiming? Who's the other one claiming that status or that?
I don't think we'd
title?
make the Canadians angry, but I think we would probably annoy the Swiss by saying that. But they don't seem to make a big deal about it because it's difficult to dispute. So let's just let them have
it. Okay. I was just curious. I want to talk just about the most recent 2023-24 season. We are here in the last half of February when we were recording. So I think we have a pretty good idea. We should have some pretty decent data and understanding. And I ask this because over here we had a really, really late start. There was so many videos about the pools of water at Whistler and the lineups and the closures and just the economic. I'm afraid to see the economic fallout of what of what happened up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was Northern Hemisphere globally or if you were able to potentially have a better season than we did, at least out here. How have things gone for skiing in China in 2023-24?
Yeah, thankfully, we didn't experience any of that. And the problem you refer to was not just in North America. I mean, Europe was almost devastated. And I don't know many places have actually recovered from the start of the season. So thankfully, in China, we were not affected by the weather in any negative way at all. The season started on time. Everybody got open as they should on time. Different parts of the country open at different times, just like everywhere else. So yeah, we were quite fortunate. We had no negative impacts by climate. In fact, so the last year's numbers. So if you look back to the previous year, we experienced around 21 million skier visits in the country, and in November and December alone, the number had already exceeded 20 million. So we're already on track to exceed last year's entire season within the first 2 months of this year. So that's a pretty good indication as to not only the quality of the experience, the product was ready, but the uptake of the consumer that wanted to get out there and start skiing and snowboarding. So we've had a good year. I mean, I won't hang my hat on the number, but my prediction is that we'll get over 30 million skier visits this year. That's the way it's tracking. Our clients and our friends in the industry are all saying they're seeing between a 15 and 20% increase on pre-pandemic numbers, which is very encouraging. Unfortunately, the discouraging part of it is that people are spending less. So we're seeing more customers, but they're spending less. And that's just a bit of a unfortunate, global economic situation that China's not immune to. Consumptions are lower, but the participation is high. People really want to get out and enjoy it. So I think it's on the right path here.
Okay. So 30 million, I have no idea what that means. 15 to 20% increase. Pre-pandemic, I could kind of put my finger on that. And I'm guessing that we don't do anything relative to during COVID because that's just not a fair assessment. That's an outlier. We throw that in the garbage. And then, but 30 million, how does that compare to somewhere like the US? What are they having?
US is around in the low to mid 50s. So, we're talking about a population of 350 million with around 50, let's just call it 53 million skier visits. And China with 1.4 billion is around 30 million skier visits. So, you look at that as a bar chart, it's going to look pretty skewed. But
all we do is talk about how opportunity knocks. Every time when we're on this, either we're talking about textiles or makeup or e-commerce or hockey or skiing, opportunity abounds. Absolutely. Okay, good. Let's talk a little bit about the average skier. I want to broadly and without prejudice profile, what does the average skier in China look like? And we're talking, I don't know, age, demographic, location. It was 700 resorts. We could be in a lot of places, but wealth, that kind of stuff. What did they look like?
Yeah, look, I think China's demographic for skiers and snowboarders is skewed younger than it probably is in North America. I haven't followed what the data is in North America at the moment, but I would say we're probably looking, in the average in the 20s to 30s age bracket, or 20 to 35. The youth, well, let's call them the youth. They're not real. They're not teenagers, but the younger generation definitely have developed a little bit more of a zest for enjoying life than the traditional go to work and raise a family type of past generations that Chinese might have. So they have more money, they have more time, they want to be adventurous, get out there with their friends and have experiences. They're not necessarily going out there and buying homes and starting families early like they used to. It's about the now and what fun can I have now with my friends. So I think it's a younger generation. Here, I would say we're definitely talking in the middle class and upper middle class. It's Chinese skiing is relatively affordable by global standards, but by Chinese compared to their kind of their base salary range, it's not a low income, no accessible sport for most. Although the local governments and the schools and these types of things subsidize that so people get a taste of it, which is the right thing to do to get people interested in the sport. But it is a more let's say affluent game here. People who have the time that they can actually take time off work. Hotels can be expensive. Transportation can be complicated. So yeah, we're probably talking about, I would say, if you compare it to say Canadian salary ranges, we're probably looking in the 35 to $70,000 per year would be, I'd say, the mean average, the average of what the main skier and snowboarder salary might look like here. So they've got a good viable income to support their habit. And then I would say most of them, it's quite surprising here actually. If you go out on the ski slopes here, you'd convince yourself almost that there are no skiers in China because almost everybody's a snowboarder. The snowboarding industry is crazy, crazy strong here by comparison to skiing. So I expect that to
Really?
shift in the years to come. But right now, it's heavily dominated by young snowboarders and a very high percentage of females. So it's quite interesting to look at.
Interesting. I'm a snowboarder myself, and I've been thinking about going back to skiing. I mean, it was the first thing I did when I was a little kid, but when I was kind of a teenager and Burton was coming out and
Mm-hmm.
Kemper was out there, and I was I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame as well. I'm
Yeah.
surprised it's kind of still that way, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think here it is. It just seems to be more of a social. I think the brands of snowboarding has done more to create a culture in China than skiing has. Skiing just seems to be you buy a product and you're a soloist, whereas here snowboarding really seems to have developed community. And people, it's all about what you wear and what car you drive and what beer you drink and all of these types of things. It's really become its own subculture, which is what it was in North America probably, I'm just guessing, maybe 20 years ago. Skiing, these things have their peaks of acceptance or yeah, or people's passion seems to go. But the technology of skiing brings people back to skiing, and I think that's what's going to happen in China right now. We don't have big mountain powder, for example, so people have not moved to twin tip skis and freestyle sports as much as they would have in North America. So snowboarding is just a little bit more trendy because the equipment and the whole atmosphere is more trendy for the kids here.
Right. So let's talk about some of the more like let's some of the elite skiing type of stuff. We know that we last had you on in 2021. Then we had the 2022 Beijing Olympics. 2 years later, do you have some high level takeaways of that event, its significance and impact on the Chinese ski industry?
Look, I would say the Olympics. The Olympics were announced in 2015, and but China's industry was already on an upward trajectory at the time. So I think the Chinese industry was always going to be something meaningful, regardless of whether the Olympics happened. Um, but the Olympics certainly solidified that. And the one thing about Chinese, maybe more so than any other country, is they're very passionate about the success of their own athletes. So if they become rock star celebrities nationwide, and China excelled at the Winter Olympics, and it really encouraged a lot of young athletes or families to get their kids to get into competitive sport in skiing, which they hadn't necessarily thought of prior to that. So China's athlete development program was fairly weak prior to the announcement of the games, but became extremely strong very quickly, and they showed some good success during the games. The games themselves obviously was a proud moment for China, but both because they pulled it off at all, let alone in the
Right.
middle of a pandemic, and did well
Mm-hmm.
medal wise. So it was a proud moment, but it just made people pay attention to winter sport as a real viable, I guess, athletes. You can be successful as an athlete on the global stage. And as a pastime, people realize that it's actually a fun thing to do. So the Olympics were very good for China. And I
Yeah.
think from an athlete progression standpoint, it's really made the world stand up and say, okay, these guys, yeah, we're not Norway, where we've got centuries of downhill skiing strength, or Canada for that matter. But these guys are a force to be reckoned with in years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to be huge. Man, I really want to go back to China for numerous reasons now. I'm so glad that I've been there and I could get there and I could speak the language and I could navigate and I can go hit up some of the hills. Really looking forward to that. Let's talk a little bit about elite competition skiing in China. Talking about how have they been doing internationally since the Olympics. They just hosted the FIS, the Freestyle World Cup. We know that there is, all hail the Queen and Madame Gu for just her dominance of all things. And talk a little bit about the state of elite competition skiing in China and how they're performing abroad now.
Yeah, look, certainly, yes, we all know Eileen Gu, so we don't need to talk about her. She's if I walk down the street here toward my office, I'll probably see her face on a poster about 5 times in about a kilometer. So, she's a
Yeah,
rock star, but she's not only changed actually the perception of skiing in China. She's changed it globally. I'm on the board of Freestyle Canada, and our demographics of new people becoming members of Freestyle Canada wanting to get into free skiing, we all of a sudden seeing a lot of young girls, and you go to like the rodeo in Calgary, the freestyle ski.
Stampede.
Yeah, well, no, there's no the ski and snowboard rodeo that was
Oh,
just the COP, where Eileen won gold medal, I think it was, or two of them just this past weekend. You look at the fans in the crowd. It looks totally different than it did 5 years ago. Now it's full of young Asian girls, right? This is a new generation of skiers and snowboarders that no one really counted on, and she can take credit for creating that, just like Tiger Woods did for golf in many ways, right? So,
or Taylor Swift did for the NFL.
oh yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
no, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. So look, yes, we have people like her, and then China, has got some great snowboarders. I think you look at Sui Ming or Liu Jiayu, like these are kind of household names of young Chinese guys and girls who have done very very well on the global stage and here during the Winter Olympics in China a couple of years ago. And so people really aspire to follow that. Um, the if you look at just on the provincial, we have provincial championships and provincial I think, I guess, entry level FIS progressive games and things like this. There are more and more youngsters, like 10, 12, 13, 14 year olds, that are coming up the ranks very, very quickly. I think the athlete development program, the next generation athletes, as we might call them, are they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in, say, not maybe 2026, but probably 2030 Olympic Games. I think 2030, I think, is where you'll really see the Chinese athletes excel. The facilities are here, the conditions are here, the government support is here to really push these athletes to get bigger and better. Mostly it's been about freestyle sports because that's the natural tendency for coming out of gymnastics and other types of aerobic type sports. The strength sports like Nordic and alpine skiing, it's going to take a while before China puts people on the podium in those sports, but the rest of them, ski jumping and freestyle sports, China's already there.
Listen, you cannot overlook or deny the economic impact of sports for an entire country. It is absolutely there. Whether it's you look at university fundraising, donations. You look at the top universities in the U.S. and where does so much of their money come from? Why do so many people want to go to those schools? It's academics or it's sports, right? And people bleed whatever school's colors they went to for life after that, and it is so ingrained. And the sports, and you think of things like golf and tennis and swimming, or even running, or skiing, or snowboarding, or skating, or what have you. I mean, they can absolutely compete in any of those as soon as they have the participation, the coaching, the infrastructure, and a little bit of compound interest on the investment into those things for a few more years, or at least a few more events. And yes, they will 100% be there. Look out, China's coming. You know, the world is on notice. So any other news that I kind of want to open up to you in terms of resort development, and we touched on the indoor ski facilities. I didn't want to jump into it before, but this is, I would say, somewhat cost prohibitive for most places in the world to really get behind this. Now, and I don't know for sure. I just kind of think that it must be. You know, you're either in Dubai or you're in China or you're in one of these places that can really afford to have these places. But just talk to us a little bit, like new exciting news and trends in terms of resort development, innovation, infrastructure, technology, indoor ski facilities. The floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. I mean, China for for most of the past 2 decades, has been a follower. Watching the trends of what's happening overseas and trying to emulate that here in China. Now I see China as being a leader, and I have a feeling that in the coming years we'll see a lot more. Rather than Chinese people going to Switzerland or Canada on fact-finding missions to see how does this industry work, we'll see North Americans and Europeans coming to China to kind of understand the next generation of the skier, because the next generation of skier is here, right? It's declining in most other countries, unfortunately, but is on a rapid increase here. So China is now trying to be ahead of the curve. Um, you know, I would say China's using a lot more AI and face recognition and all these types of technologies that improve the efficiency of the experience. So I think China everywhere has lots of people, so it's how to move people around efficiently, how to speed up procedures, how to make things safe without going overboard. These are the types of things that are changing quite quickly in China. And I think in other countries we're still kind of following very old school ways of going about things. So I think China is starting to learn from other aspects of sport and tourism and applying them to the ski industry, rather than just following what your colleagues and competitors around the ski industry are doing. They're actually looking to other aspects of traffic movement or people management or these types of things, and applying them into the ski industry, which is quite unique. The indoor ski industry is quite the phenomenon in China. When you think about it, more than half of 1.4 billion people live in a part of China where there is no snow. These people have disposable income. They have a desire to be. They typically are more athletic in general. They're runners and they're hikers and they play football because they can play outside all year round. But they're looking for other types of entertainment and outlets to spend time with their friends. So indoor ski dome development in the southern part of China there's more than 700 million people there. That's a target market. And the Chinese government, because it's still supporting the growth of winter sport as a part of its platform for the 2022 games, anybody who wants to develop a piece of property for a mixed use development, a shopping mall or office complex, they're saying you need to have a winter sport component to be involved with this, whether it's an ice rink or a curling rink or an indoor ski dome or just a snow play area or something that gets people exposed to winter sport. So that's just supporting the government's narrative. And really the government's narrative is that we want people to be active, healthy, and out enjoying themselves, and not sitting at a desk for 60, 70 hours a week and being depressed, because a happy people makes a happy economy. And I think that's being shown through. So, the technology and the architectural boundaries that the local developers are pushing to bring kind of a holistic experience in these indoor ski domes. It's like Disney inside a refrigerated box. It's really quite something. There's something for everybody, from grandparents down to babies, from professional athletes to first-time skiers or snowboarders. That people are making these their destination. It's really, I encourage anybody to come and have a look at them. It's state-of-the-art stuff. And they've got, but the good thing is they've got the population base to support that. You need density, right? So you don't just build a place that can hold 100,000, 10,000 people in a day in a population where there's only 30,000 people. It doesn't make sense. So thankfully we've got big cities.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever wanted to go skiing in a snow globe, China's the place for you.
Definitely.
Now, last question, real quick. If you could just touch on maybe the opportunity in China for purveyors and makers of ski equipment, winter apparel brands, ski clubs, hockey clinics, and coaching programs and academies. What does the opportunity look like, especially in the ski industry, for those types of people in China right now?
Yeah, look, most of the big brands are already here, and the big brands seem to dominate, say, the apparel and the equipment market. Now, that being said, there's still a lot of niche opportunities for the smaller brands. So, for example, as I mentioned about Northeast China, this is powder mecca. It's kind of like northern Japan or the Canadian Rockies in a good year. These are big. This is an opportunity for the all mountain skis and the big powder boards and the Arc'teryxes of the world, rather than just being a fashion brand, but being a proper functional brand for the environment. People who have a technically specific product. There's still plenty of opportunity now as these frontier ski destinations come about and start to become more popular and more accessible. But as it comes, so definitely on the apparel, it's a saturated market at the moment, but I think it's starting to stabilize. And I think if you've got the right product and you find the right market segment, it's a big population that you still have the opportunity to benefit from. When it comes to the educational side, there's still a huge opportunity for yes, a ski instructor is a ski instructor. Let's say you take somebody who's a level 1 ski instructor and teach a newcomer to the sport how to ski, but it's the next steps. So it's about how to get people into racing or into freestyle or into snowboarding or into the whole disabled sport education side of things. I think the whole educational side of the business, there's a lot of people at level 1, let's call it, but the pyramid still needs to grow. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for international freestyle camps, both inbound into China, bringing the education into China, but also taking people out of the country for other types of coaching and professional experiences. And then there's the educational side of the business from the academic side. So it's talented tradespeople, so grooming drivers, snowmakers, ski patrollers, operational management level people. China still needs these types of people and needs this type of intelligence to help it grow in a responsible way and to set the basis for where China needs to be for the next 20, 30 years.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Justin Downs, President of Access Leisure Management. Thank you very much for once again coming on the show.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, for everybody who is listening to us audio only, whether it's on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, thank you for listening. But don't forget, if you want to catch the full video version of this interview or just see some of the shorts, head on over to the WPIC YouTube channel and find it all there. But from me and for Justin and for the entire team at The Negotiation, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.